The emerald canopy of Veritas 9 shimmered with bioluminescent light as night descended on the jungle moon. Dr. Mara Solis sat cross-legged at the entrance of her research tent, meticulously logging the day's observations. Her fingers danced across the holographic display as she categorized new species of flora she'd discovered on her afternoon trek through the Western Quadrant. Atmospheric toxicity levels increasing by 0.3%, announced the camp's AI in its flat, emotionless voice. Recommend sealing tent perimeter within the next 17 minutes. Mara glanced at the encroaching darkness beyond her camp's energy barrier. The rainforest of Veritas 9 transformed at night. What seemed merely dangerous during daylight hours became lethal after sunset. The barrier hummed with quiet efficiency, a thin blue line between life and death. Acknowledged, she replied, saving her work with a practiced gesture. Run perimeter scan first. I thought I heard something unusual near the south sensor array. She'd been stationed on this remote moon for nearly 7 months now, tasked with documenting the complex ecosystem and predator hierarchy for Axiom Corporation. Veritas 9 was rich in rare minerals and biologicals, but its native fauna had already claimed the lives of 3 survey teams before her arrival. Understanding the predators was key to making the moon viable for extraction. The AI paused before responding. Scan indicates multiple biosignatures approaching southern perimeter. Pattern suggests pack hunting behavior. Recommend immediate lockdown protocols. Mara frowned and rose to her feet. Pack hunters were common enough, but they rarely approached her camp directly. The energy barrier had thus far proved an effective deterrent. She grabbed her field scanner and protective vest, slinging both on with practiced ease. Display biosignatures on my tablet, she instructed, picking up the device from her workstation. The screen illuminated with glowing dots, 7 smaller signatures moving in coordinated patterns, and 1 larger signature backing away from them. Mara's eyes narrowed. The behavior was unusual. Most predators on Veritas 9 maintained strict territory boundaries. Curiosity overrode caution. Delay lockdown for 5 minutes. I want visual confirmation. Against safety protocol, the AI responded. Command override required. Override authorized. Solace Echo 97 Delta, Mara said firmly. She'd learned early in her career that AI safety protocols, while well-intentioned, often interfered with genuine discovery. Sometimes, you had to see things with your own eyes. She approached the southern perimeter, where the energy barrier cast a soft blue glow against the dense foliage. The sounds of the jungle intensified, chittering calls, rustling leaves, and a new sound, a deep, throaty growl punctuated by higher-pitched snarls. Mara activated her night vision implant with a blink. The world transformed into shades of green, and there, just beyond the barrier, she saw them. The pack hunters, verdant claws, she'd named them, sleek, 6-limbed creatures with elongated jaws, surrounding a much larger predator, backed against a massive tree. Her breath caught. The larger creature was a scarred raptor, one of the apex predators she'd documented from a safe distance weeks earlier. This particular specimen was distinctive. A jagged scar ran down its left flank, likely from territorial combat. But now it was wounded anew, fresh indigo blood seeping from its hind leg as the pack closed in. Mara's scientific mind raced. This was unprecedented behavior, lower-tier predators coordinating to take down an apex. But something else stirred within her, something less clinical. The raptor fought with desperate ferocity, but its movements were hampered by the wound. It would not survive the night. Protocol dictates non-interference in native predator conflicts, the AI reminded her, sensing her hesitation. Mara bit her lip. The corporation's directives were clear. Observe, document, but never intervene. Natural selection was to proceed unimpeded. But watching the magnificent creature's last stand, something rebellious sparked within her. AI, prepare non-lethal sonic deterrent, she ordered. Target only the claws. Narrow beam. Warning. Action violates Section 7.3 of Field Research Protocols. The AI stated. Potential career impact noted. Override accepted, Mara said firmly. Execute now. The barrier emitted a focused pulse of sound, inaudible to human ears, but calibrated precisely to the claw's sensitive hearing range. The effect was immediate. The pack scattered, shaking their elongated heads in discomfort before disappearing into the undergrowth. The scarred raptor remained, its massive chest heaving with exertion. In the green glow of night vision, Mara could see its eyes, intelligent, calculating, fixed directly on her position behind the barrier. It made no move to flee, instead sinking to a resting position, still watching her. Mara stood transfixed. No predator had ever remained so close to camp, let alone stared her down with such obvious awareness. The wound on its leg continued to bleed, and despite its fearsome appearance, nearly 3 meters of muscle, scale, and talon, the creature looked vulnerable. Dr. Solis, camp lockdown sequence initiated, the AI announced. Please return to secure quarters immediately. She hesitated. Delay lockdown another 10 minutes, and prepare the medical kit. Medical intervention for native fauna is explicitly forbidden, the AI reminded her. I'm aware, Mara said softly, her eyes never leaving the raptor. Override authorized. The night air was thick with humidity as Mara approached the barrier's edge. The raptor's eyes tracked her movement, its posture tense but not aggressive. Slowly, Mara lowered the barrier strength to permit the passage of small objects while maintaining protection against larger threats. Her heart hammered as she pushed the medical kit through the shimmering blue field. It landed with a soft thud, just meters from the predator. Mara then retrieved a package of synthesized protein from her rations and sent it through as well. This is highly irregular behavior, Dr. Solis, the AI commented. Recommend immediate cessation. Mara ignored the warning. Instead, she sat down cross-legged at the barrier's edge and waited. The raptor's nostrils flared as it caught the scent of the protein. With deliberate slowness, it extended its neck and sniffed at the offering. After several tense moments, it consumed the food in a single, powerful bite. Then, to Mara's astonishment, it dragged itself closer to the medical kit, leaving a trail of indigo blood on the forest floor. Unbelievable, she whispered, activating her recording implant. Subject appears to associate the medical supplies with potential relief, demonstrating intelligence far beyond previous assessments. Throughout the night, Mara guided the creature through a crude form of treatment. Using gestures and simple sounds, she demonstrated how to apply the healing gel to its wound. The raptor watched with uncanny comprehension, eventually mimicking her actions with its more dexterous front limbs. By dawn, the bleeding had stopped, and the raptor had settled into a resting position just outside the barrier, its eyes heavy, but still fixed on Mara. You're welcome, she said softly, as the first light of Veritas IX's primary sun filtered through the canopy. I'll call you Scar. Over the next several days, Mara documented the raptor's recovery with meticulous care. Each morning, she expected to find it gone, returned to its territory in the depths of the jungle. Each morning, it remained, curled near the southern perimeter, watching her work with those intelligent eyes. On the fourth day, Jiro Tanaka's scheduled communication came through. As the camp's remote engineer, he was her only regular human contact. Mara, your equipment readings are showing some anomalies. His voice crackled through the comm system. Energy barrier fluctuations at the southern perimeter. Everything all right out there? Mara glanced toward where Scar lay, dozing in a patch of sunlight. Just some minor adjustments for my research, she replied carefully. Nothing to worry about. If you say so. Jiro sounded unconvinced. But listen, these readings would trigger an automatic report if I submitted them as is. You know how the corporation feels about equipment modifications. Mara's stomach tightened. I appreciate the heads up. Jiro, I'll stabilize the readings. Look, I don't know what you're doing out there, but be careful, okay? I've worked with enough field researchers to know when someone's bending the rules. His voice softened. Just don't take unnecessary risks. That moon's already claimed enough lives. I'm being careful, Mara assured him, her eyes still on Scar. I've just made a discovery that requires some unconventional approaches. After ending the communication, Mara stepped outside her tent. Scar's head lifted immediately, tracking her movement. The wound on its hind leg was healing remarkably well. You're going to get me in trouble, she told the creature with a small smile. But you're worth it. The data I'm collecting about your behavior could revolutionize our understanding of predator intelligence on Veritas 9. That evening, as Mara conducted her perimeter check, she noticed something unusual. Scar was gone from its usual resting spot. A momentary pang of disappointment struck her. Had the creature finally returned to the wild, now that it was healing? Her question was answered moments later, when she rounded the eastern side of her camp. There, moving parallel to her, but just beyond the barrier, was Scar. The raptor was patrolling, mirroring her route with precise attention to her pace and direction. Are you guarding me? She asked incredulously. The raptor made a low, rumbling sound in its throat. Not a growl, but something almost conversational. Mara laughed despite herself. Well, I appreciate the company, she said, though I'm supposed to be studying you, not the other way around. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Scar would disappear into the jungle for hours at a time, presumably hunting, but always return to resume its position near Mara's tent. Each evening, they would patrol the perimeter together, Mara inside the barrier, Scar outside. Mara documented everything: the raptor's hunting patterns, its territorial markers, its vocalizations. She'd never been able to observe an apex predator so closely before, and the data was invaluable. But something beyond scientific curiosity was growing within her, a bond of mutual respect, perhaps even trust. You understand more than you should, she told Scar one evening as she reviewed her notes. And I'm breaking more regulations than I can count by allowing this relationship to continue. The raptor blinked its large, iridescent eyes, then settled its massive head onto its front limbs with a rumbling sigh. Mara's bi-weekly report to Base Command was due, and she wrestled with how much to reveal. Commander Astra Voss was known for strict adherence to protocol. Report, Dr. Solis. Commander Voss's stern face appeared on the communication screen. Any significant findings this period? Mara hesitated. I've documented increased intelligence in the apex predator species. Commander, they exhibit problem-solving capabilities and territorial awareness beyond previous assessments. Interesting, Voss replied, her expression unchanging. But nothing that would delay extraction planning, I hope. The board is eager to begin preliminary mining surveys. I believe more study is warranted before we introduce heavy machinery to the ecosystem, Mara said carefully. The predator hierarchy is complex and potentially vulnerable to disruption. Voss's eyes narrowed slightly. Your job is to document, Dr. Solis, not to make policy recommendations. Unless you've found something that specifically violates safety protocols for extraction? Mara thought of Scar, currently dozing just meters from her tent. No specific violations yet, she answered, but I request an extension of my research period. Denied, Voss said flatly. Survey teams arrive in 3 months. Your final report is due 2 weeks prior. Prepare your findings accordingly. After the communication ended, Mara stepped outside, frustration churning within her. Scar lifted its head immediately, sensing her agitation. They're going to tear this place apart, she told the creature, knowing it couldn't understand her words, but somehow feeling it comprehended her emotion. All this, she gestured to the vibrant jungle around them. We'll be processing plants and extraction pits within a year. Scar rose to its feet and approached the barrier, closer than it had ever come before. It stood there, massive and powerful, yet strangely gentle as it watched her through the shimmering blue field. In that moment, Mara made a decision. She would document everything about her interaction with Scar, their developing relationship, the creature's extraordinary intelligence, the potential for coexistence rather than exploitation. If she could prove that Veritas Nine's predators were sentient enough to warrant protection, perhaps she could at least buy time for a more sustainable approach to the moon's resources. That night, a violent storm swept across the jungle. The camp's weather shield strained against the onslaught of acidic rain and gale-force winds. Mara monitored the systems anxiously as power fluctuations rippled through the camp. Warning: Southern Perimeter Energy Barrier failing. The AI announced. Emergency generators engaged. Estimated failure in 7 minutes. Mara rushed to the equipment shed. If the barrier failed completely, the camp would be exposed to whatever predators the storm had displaced. She needed to manually reroute power from non-essential systems. The wind howled as she sprinted across the open space between her tent and the shed. Lightning crackled overhead, illuminating the churning canopy in stark flashes of purple and white. She was halfway to the shed when a massive crash resonated behind her. Spinning around, she saw a section of the barrier flicker and die. Through the gap slithered 3 verdant claws, their eyes gleaming in the stormlight as they spotted her. Mara froze. Her weapon was back in the tent. The shed was still 10 meters away. The claws fanned out, preparing to circle her. A deafening roar cut through the storm's chaos. From the darkness beyond the failed barrier, Scar emerged, massive jaws wide and talons extended. The raptor launched itself between Mara and the claws, its body forming a living shield. The claws hesitated, recognizing the apex predator that had evaded their pack weeks earlier. But hunger and opportunity overrode caution, and they attacked as one. Mara could only watch in stunned amazement as Scar fought with calculated precision. The raptor didn't waste energy on displays or unnecessary movements. Each strike was deliberate. Each defensive position protected Mara's direction. Within minutes, 2 claws lay dead, and the third retreated through the barrier breach. In the sudden quiet, broken only by the ongoing storm, Scar turned to Mara. Blood, both its own and the claws, matted its scales, but its eyes held no feral bloodlust, only a steady awareness. "You saved my life," Mara whispered. The raptor made that same conversational rumble in its throat, then nudged her gently toward the shed. Understanding dawned on Mara. It was urging her to complete her task, to restore the barrier. With shaking hands, she rerouted the power. The barrier hummed back to life, sealing the breach. Only then did she notice that Scar was now inside the perimeter, no longer separated from her by the energy field. They stood facing each other, human and predator, with nothing between them for the first time. Rain hissed against the weather shield overhead as they regarded one another. Slowly, deliberately, Mara extended her hand. Scar lowered its massive head and, with surprising gentleness, pressed its scaled snout against her palm. "Well," Mara said, her voice thick with emotion, "I guess we're rewriting the protocol now." The weeks that followed were a revolution in Mara's research. With Scar now freely moving within the camp perimeter, she was able to conduct tests that revealed astonishing cognitive abilities. The raptor could solve complex puzzles to obtain food rewards, recognized itself in reflective surfaces, and demonstrated memory for specific objects and locations. Most remarkably, it began to understand simple verbal commands, sitting when asked, retrieving specific items, and even responding to its name. Mara documented everything meticulously, building an irrefutable case for the sentience of Veritas Nine's apex predators. Jiro's communications became more frequent and increasingly concerned. Mara, your data transmissions are setting off all kinds of alarms back at headquarters, he warned during one call. They're talking about sending an inspection team ahead of schedule. Let them come, Mara replied with newfound confidence. What I've discovered here changes everything. Jiro, these aren't just animals. They're intelligent beings. You're not making sense. Jiro's voice was tight with worry. What exactly have you discovered? Mara glanced at Scar, who was methodically organizing her collection of rock samples by size and color, a behavior it had developed entirely on its own. I've made contact, she said simply. Real contact, and I can prove it. Jiro was silent for a long moment. Mara, listen to yourself. Whatever you think you've discovered, it's not worth your career or your life. These are dangerous predators, not pets. It's not my pet, Mara said firmly. It's a colleague. After ending the call, Mara knew time was running short. If an inspection team arrived, they would see Scar as a threat and eliminate it without hesitation. She needed to accelerate her documentation and find a way to present her findings that even the most profit-driven corporate executive couldn't ignore. As she worked late into the night, compiling her research, the AI suddenly interrupted. Warning, multiple biosignatures detected approaching camp perimeter. Pattern indicates coordinated movement. Mara looked up sharply. How many? 27 distinct signatures. Primarily, verdant clawer classification, with 3 larger unidentified predators. Her blood ran cold. Never had so many predators approached the camp simultaneously. This wasn't random. It was deliberate. Display on main screen, she ordered. The monitor showed a mass of glowing dots moving steadily toward the camp from all directions. A pack. No, multiple packs, moving with unified purpose. Increase barrier strength to maximum, Mara instructed. Alert me to any fluctuations. She found Scar already alert, standing rigid near the tent entrance, its nostrils flaring as it scented the air. A low, warning growl emanated from deep in its chest. You sense them too, Mara said. But why so many? Why now? The answer came with the dawn. As first light broke over the jungle canopy, Mara could see them. Dozens of claws and other predator species circling just beyond the barrier. Their behavior defied everything she knew about the moon's ecology. Different species never hunted together, yet here they were, united by some common purpose. Scar paced anxiously, its powerful tail lashing the air. Then, to Mara's horror, the AI announced, Power fluctuation detected. Eastern perimeter barrier strength at 70% and falling. The creatures beyond seemed to sense the weakness, gathering more densely at that section of the barrier. Mara rushed to the control panel, trying to reroute additional power. Emergency generators engaging, the AI stated. Barrier stabilizing at 65%. It wouldn't be enough. Mara knew the barrier couldn't repel a concentrated attack at that strength. She activated the emergency beacon, a last resort that would bring corporate security. But they were days away. What do they want? She muttered, watching the predators testing the barrier with exploratory pushes. Then, understanding dawned as she looked at Scar. The apex predator, now living within a human camp, had violated the natural order. This wasn't random. It was punishment. Retribution from the jungle itself. They're here for you, she told Scar. You've broken their rules as much as I've broken mine. The barrier flickered ominously. Mara had only moments to make a decision. Protocol dictated she retreat to the emergency shelter, a reinforced pod beneath the main tent that could withstand attack for up to a week. But that would mean abandoning Scar to the horde. I'm not leaving you, she said firmly, grabbing her pulse rifle. It wasn't designed to kill, only to stun, but it was better than nothing. The barrier failed with a cascading shimmer of blue light. Immediately, the predators surged forward. Mara fired rapidly, dropping the first wave with stun pulses. But there were too many. They would overwhelm her in seconds. Scar roared, a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very air. The raptor launched itself into the mass of attackers with terrifying precision. Claws flashed, jaws snapped, and predators fell before its onslaught. But even an apex couldn't fight dozens of attackers. Mara continued firing, creating a perimeter of stunned bodies around her position. But her weapon's charge was depleting rapidly. A clawer broke through, slashing at her leg. She cried out in pain as its talons tore through her protective gear and into flesh. In an instant, Scar was there, seizing the claw in its jaws and hurling it aside with bone-crushing force. The raptor positioned itself over Mara's fallen form, its massive body forming a living shield as it fought off attacker after attacker. Through a haze of pain, Mara watched in awe. Scar wasn't just fighting. It was protecting her with deliberate strategy, keeping its most vulnerable points away from attackers while ensuring no creature could reach her. The battle seemed to last an eternity. Mara's vision began to blur from blood loss, but she maintained consciousness through sheer determination. She needed to witness this, to document this extraordinary display of interspecies loyalty. Eventually, the attack slowed. The remaining predators, faced with the relentless defense of the apex raptor, began to retreat. Scar stood blood-soaked, but unbowed, continuing to guard Mara until the last attacker disappeared into the jungle. Only then did the raptor turn its attention to her wound. With surprising gentleness, it nudged her toward the medical kit she always kept nearby. Mara applied pressure bandages to her leg, stemming the bleeding while Scar watched with evident concern. "We did it," she told the creature, her voice weak but triumphant. "We survived." As night fell, Mara managed to activate the emergency generators, restoring a weak barrier around what remained of the camp. Her leg throbbed painfully, but the wound was clean and bandaged. She recorded a detailed account of the attack while it was still fresh in her mind, emphasizing Scar's extraordinary protective behavior. Exhausted beyond measure, she finally retreated to her tent to rest. The structure had survived mostly intact, though claw marks riddled its exterior. Mara collapsed onto her sleeping mat, too tired even to fully remove her torn field gear. She awoke hours later to a strange warmth and the sound of deep, rhythmic breathing. Opening her eyes, she found Scar curled around her sleeping mat, its massive body forming a protective circle. The raptor's eyes were closed, its breathing steady in sleep, but Mara had no doubt it would wake instantly at any sign of threat. "You're sleeping in my tent now?" she whispered with a soft laugh. "What would Commander Voss say about that?" Scar's eyes opened briefly at the sound of her voice, regarded her calmly, then closed again as the creature adjusted its position slightly to maintain contact with her mat. In that moment, something shifted within Mara. This wasn't just about scientific discovery anymore. It wasn't even about protecting an intelligent species from corporate exploitation. It was about trust, a trust that transcended species, biology, and every protocol she'd been trained to follow. The following days were spent rebuilding the camp and treating their respective wounds. Mara's leg began to heal cleanly, though she would carry a scar to match her companions. Scar, despite numerous cuts and punctures, recovered with remarkable speed, a testament to the resilient biology that had evolved on this harsh moon. The emergency beacon continued to pulse its signal into space. Soon, a corporate response team would arrive, and Mara knew she needed to be prepared. She worked feverishly, compiling her research into a comprehensive presentation that documented not only Scar's intelligence, but the unprecedented relationship they had formed. "They'll want to study you," she told Scar as she worked. "Best case scenario, they'll establish a research outpost rather than an extraction facility. Worst case." She couldn't bring herself to finish the thought. Scar, seemingly sensing her concern, pressed its snout gently against her shoulder, a gesture of reassurance that had become familiar between them. On the seventh day after the attack, the AI announced, "Incoming transmission from Base Command, Priority Alpha." Commander Voss's face appeared on the screen, her expression grave. "Dr. Solis, we received your emergency beacon. A security team launches in 12 hours. Your last transmissions were concerning. Are you injured?" "I sustained a minor wound, but I'm stable," Mara replied. "Commander, I need to brief you on what's happened here. I've made a breakthrough that changes everything we thought we knew about Veritas 9. Voss's eyes narrowed. "Your transmission data showed massive barrier failures and abnormal predator activity. The board is considering abandoning the research station entirely, unless you can provide compelling evidence that the moon remains viable for exploitation." "Not exploitation," Mara said firmly. "Cooperation." She spent the next hour presenting her findings. The documented intelligence of the apex predators, the possibility of communication, and most importantly, the protection Scar had provided during the attack. "You expect me to believe a predator saved your life?" Voss asked, incredulously. "Dr. Solis, have you considered that isolation may be affecting your judgment?" "I have video evidence of everything," Mara countered. "And I can demonstrate live interaction when your team arrives." "This is highly irregular," Voss said after a long pause. "But if what you're claiming is true, the scientific value could outweigh immediate resource extraction." After the transmission ended, Mara turned to find Scar watching her intently. "They're coming," she told the creature. "And everything depends on what happens next." The corporate shuttle arrived 3 days later, descending through Veritas 9's thick atmosphere with a roar that sent wildlife scattering. Mara stood at the edge of the landing zone, her posture straight, despite the lingering pain in her leg. Beside her, a temporary barrier contained Scar, not for safety, but to prevent the security team from firing on sight. Commander Voss emerged first, flanked by armed guards whose weapons trained immediately on the contained Raptor. Behind them came a team of scientists, their expressions varying from skepticism to undisguised fascination. "Dr. Solis," Voss greeted her with a curt nod. "I see your colleague is present." "This is Scar," Mara replied, maintaining a calm demeanor despite her racing heart. "And what you're about to witness will change our entire approach to Veritas 9. Over the next several hours, Mara demonstrated everything she had documented: Scar's problem-solving abilities, its response to verbal commands, its capacity for memory and recognition. The scientists asked questions, took readings, and gradually, their skepticism gave way to excitement. "It's extraordinary," admitted the lead xenobiologist. "The neural complexity we're measuring exceeds anything in our database for non-sapient species." Even Commander Voss seemed impressed, as Scar completed a complex sequence of tasks that demonstrated not only intelligence, but what could only be described as reasoning. "The implications are significant," Voss conceded. "But the board won't abandon the extraction plans based on one specimen." "Then let me show you the final evidence," Mara said. She deactivated the barrier containing Scar. The guards tensed, raising their weapons, but Voss held up a hand to stop them. "Dr. Solis, what are you doing?" she demanded. "Demonstrating trust," Mara replied simply. She walked toward Scar, who remained perfectly still until she reached its side. Then, with deliberate gentleness, the massive predator lowered its head to her level, allowing her to place a hand on its scaled snout. "This isn't just intelligence," Mara explained. "It's a relationship, a partnership. Scar saved my life, protected this camp, and has shown capacity for cooperation that defies everything we thought we knew about predator behavior." The scientists murmured among themselves, capturing readings and images from a safe distance. "One specimen doesn't change planetary policy," Voss said, though her voice lacked its usual conviction. "But it can change how we approach that policy," Mara countered. "I'm proposing a revised protocol for Veritas 9, a cooperative research model that allows limited resource extraction alongside protected territories for the apex predators. The board will never The board will want to avoid the public relations disaster of exterminating a newly discovered intelligent species. Mara interrupted. Especially one that has demonstrated capacity for peaceful interaction with humans. Voss was silent for a long moment, her calculating gaze moving from Mara to Scar and back again. "I will present your findings," she finally said, "but I make no promises about the outcome." After the commander and her team returned to their shuttle to communicate with corporate headquarters, Mara sat outside her tent, Scar lounging beside her. The raptor's presence was a comfort now, familiar and reassuring. "I don't know if we've done enough," she told the creature, "but we've changed something, started something new." Scar made that rumbling sound in its throat, the one Mara had come to interpret as agreement. 3 days later, Commander Voss returned with the board's decision. "The extraction plan has been modified," she announced, not bothering to hide her surprise. "A limited operation will proceed on the eastern continent, away from the highest concentration of apex predator territories. Meanwhile, your research station will be expanded into a permanent outpost dedicated to studying interspecies cooperation." Relief flooded through Mara. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a beginning, a chance to build on what she and Scar had started. "And my research partner?" she asked, glancing at Scar, who observed the proceedings with evident interest. "Your partner is now officially classified as a research asset," Voss replied, with the ghost of a smile. "The first documented case of human-predator cooperation on Veritas 9. Congratulations, Dr. Solis. You've made history." That night, as Veritas 9's 3 moons rose above the jungle canopy, Mara sat completing her official report. Beside her tent, no longer separated by any barrier, Scar kept watch, its massive form silhouetted against the bioluminescent forest. "Final observation," Mara dictated to her recording system. "The apex predator specimen, designation Scar, continues to demonstrate unprecedented social bonding behavior. It now regularly assumes a protective position outside my sleeping quarters during rest periods, effectively functioning as a sentinel." She paused, looking at the magnificent creature that had transformed from research subject to savior to companion. Beyond the scientific implications, this relationship represents a profound opportunity, not just for understanding Veritas 9's ecosystem, but for redefining humanity's approach to alien worlds. Perhaps the greatest discovery is not that we've found intelligent life, but that intelligent life has found something worthy in us as well. Scar turned its head, those intelligent eyes meeting hers across the distance. In that gaze, Mara saw not a predator, not a subject, but a fellow traveler on an unexpected journey. "End recording," she said softly. As the system powered down, Mara stepped outside to join her unlikely guardian under the alien stars. Together, predator and prey, researcher and subject, they had rewritten the natural order of Veritas 9, and perhaps, in some small way, the future of human exploration itself. Scar rumbled that conversational greeting, shifting slightly to make space for her beside its warm flank. Mara settled against the creature, unafraid. "Good night, my friend," she whispered. "We have much work to do tomorrow." The scarred raptor blinked slowly in agreement, its massive body curled protectively around her as the sounds of the jungle night enveloped them both.